Oh, you're on mute. John, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm not bursting out of the gate and good morning, nobody can hear me.
I love it. I love it.
Good morning and welcome to the Say Yes Movement podcast, where we help you with your professional and personal growth and maybe even teach you some tech, like unmuting yourself before you start talking. Well, welcome to the show and good morning, Heather.
Good
How
morning,
are you
John.
doing?
Good morning, John. And if anybody ever wonders, are we really live? We truly are really live, tech issues and all. So, John, it is Friday. We always do the same thing every Friday because it is our way of being consistent, and that is Celebration Friday. So, tell me, John, what are you celebrating for the week?
Oh, yeah, I know. Listen, I love Celebration Fridays because they actually help you look at the good stuff. No matter what else is going on in your life, you always get to see what's good. And this week I launched into my first week of teaching again. We're back to school, so I got to do a little bit of that, which was fantastic, and just being there with all the new students and just exposing them to a little bit of my thinking, which is a little bit contrarian when it comes to job search. So super excited about that, and having the second week of the 30-day spring reset. Listen, one of my favorite parts of this reset, which I've done, which is new, which I've never done before, is a weekly meditation call.
Ooh.
And all I could say is the grounding that happens on Wednesdays kind of sets us for the rest of the week, which is so nice. And then we have our celebration. So here we are. I'm so excited and so pumped, right? It's just, woo. Okay, good. What's your turn, Heather? What are you celebrating?
I have had some amazing conversations this week with individuals, and this is part of my positively impact 5 people a day. But I'll tell you, this week I've been positively impacted by all of these conversations, and they've ranged from career development, people feeling imposter syndrome, people sharing their skills and their passions with me, people telling me about their cooking adventures, and just I don't know, the theme of adventure and learning has really been showing up this week, and people sharing those stories. So, the fabric of humanity is telling stories. And I often, when we're teaching people how to be communicators, people say, but I don't have a story. No. We all have a story. And in fact, as a coach, as a leader, it's our job to ask those questions that will evoke them to just tell their own story. And it's, I honestly, I am blown away with the talent that keeps coming around me. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to learn from you. I want to learn. So that's what I'm celebrating this Friday. It's just been conversations that have really hit my heart.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm with you. I too have had some really interesting conversations this week. The importance of story and just kind of opening up yourself that way through story. There's so much that can be done. I just wanted to take a quick moment, say shout out to Nicole, who's joining us on her morning walk. Well, thank you.
Ooh,
Listen,
good job,
it's
Nicole.
I love it. I went out for my walk this morning, and I'm always listening to something too, right? Not necessarily always live. But it definitely makes the walk, listen, you could be doing anything and listening on your walk. So I'm so happy that you're here listening with us.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
excited.
So, John, this whole concept of like learning and adventure, I was introduced to a new concept this week, and actually it's part of a book. So I'm going to share it because this book, Multipliers, How the Best Leaders Make Everyone Smarter. I was like, whoa, that's exactly what we always talk about, which is how do we positively impact those around us? How do we shine the light on people's strengths and help build them up? And, this is a new book for me, but I wanted to talk about the concept of being a multiplier or being a diminisher. When I ask that question, John, what comes to mind for you? What is a diminisher to you?
Wow, a diminisher. I've already, like, a couple of managers already popped into my head. That's not good.
Isn't that funny how that works?
You know who the diminishers are in your life, right? When it comes to leadership inside of organizations. But diminishers to me don't give you the space to grow, right? They're always limiting you. And, I'm having several coaching conversations with a lot of different people. And what I've found that's been common is how much of the diminisher can kill the spirit of somebody on their team, right? Somebody who wants to, come in and deliver more, be more, contribute more to the organization. And they just feel like, it's just like having the wind taken out of your sails, having your tires flattened. Like
Mm.
you get to the point where you can only fight for so long, and then you want to stop, right?
You
And
want to stop.
we talk about, and this was a big buzzword last year. This year I haven't heard it so much, but silent quitting, right? Those people that are
Mm.
just kind of sitting there doing the minimal so that they don't get fired, but enough to just get by. And if you want to be an organization that's going to thrive and get to the next level, you got to grow the people around you,
Yes,
right?
absolutely, absolutely. I think what you said right off the bat is that we've all had that leader that was a diminisher around us. And sometimes people don't mean to be diminishers, and the term is
Mm.
called an accidental diminisher. But we'll get into that. So when I say multiplier, what does that mean as a leader to you?
Oh, listen, multipliers are people. When I think about some of the best leaders I've had growing up in my career, have all been people who've wanted to see me grow, people who want to see me get to the next level, people who don't want to see me fixed in the same spot. And they'll question
Mm.
me on, it's been 2 years. Like, shouldn't you be looking for something new? Like, they don't want you to stay in the same place. What I found with those leaders, like I put in way more effort, way more time. I would pretty much do anything they asked me to do,
Mm.
right?
Wow.
And and this could be a touchy subject for some, but I would do things that weren't necessarily part of my job description and part of my job role, because those multipliers knew, or at least had a vision for where I was going to go next. And because I was
Mm.
putting on all that extra work, I was taking on extra activities, doing the stuff that nobody else wanted to do. I stepped into it. Even if I didn't know how to do it, I would still step into it, take them on, and that's what became a launching pad to the next part of my career.
Wow. Wow.
Right?
And
And
all
that to
because
me,
you trusted your
yeah,
person that and they weren't asking you to do all those things. You were actually seeing those problems and deciding that you were going to be the person that would step up, right?
yeah, no, absolutely. Or I had a rule on my team, right? And the rule was, if you see a problem, fantastic. Let's highlight it. Let's bring it to the table. But I also want you to bring 3 options on how we're going to solve it. And that
Mm.
became like a standard, right? So let's highlight. It's one thing to highlight issues. It's another to really think them through. So people either brought issues to the table because they had suggestions and ideas and recommendations, which is fantastic, or nobody brought suggestions to the table because they all knew they were going to take on something new and exciting. So it was, and that's what I had learned from my leaders, right? Like my multipliers in my career. When you come to the table with an issue or challenge, let's figure out how we're going to do this. I'm here to support
Mm.
you, and I'm going to be there with you through this. You're not alone, but let's kind of think this through. So yeah, no, it's I've taken it, and it's had a big impact on how I lead people as well, because it's made me the person I am when it comes to leadership. What about
Well,
you, Heather?
and I think about the multiplier effect of leadership. When I look at people, I'm always future thinking, like where what will you be celebrating at the end of the year? What does your future self look like? But I
Mm,
actually look at a person and see the new version of them, the elevation if they just get some of their own bias out of the way, some of their own confidence increases, the imposter syndrome just dials down slightly, and I talk to them as if they're already that person. And it's really
mm,
neat to see people say, "Oh, when I get to that next career move," I'm like, "You mean when you do it today?" Because the actions of a leader can be done today. You don't need a title to be that next level of leadership. And that's a misconception that we're always living in the future. And oh, when I get there, one day. No, today
yeah.
day to be the leader. And so think about that concept of diminishers and multipliers. So diminishers are people that show up and say, you know what, my team, the people around me, they can't figure it out without me. And that
Mm,
isn't going to elevate the strengths. Where multipliers are the people that are smart enough to know that the people that report to them are also smart enough to figure it out without you. And in fact, I started this conversation saying people have brought their strengths to the table this week and showcased. And I don't know how to do the things that they know how to do. But I want to surround myself with those people because I'm going to either learn from them or we're going to elevate each other together. And that's the whole concept of being a multiplier, is you're multiplying the strengths of everyone around you. We all have different strengths, and then you
Mm.
become this strong, powerful, unstoppable team. And so that is just, that the concept really hits home, because we have to think about what is the actions we're doing that create multipliers and what are the actions that cause diminishers. Now, I want to go back to this concept of the accidental diminisher, John, because
Okay.
you actually touched on it just a little bit by saying, hey, you got to bring a problem and 3 ideas how to solve that problem. And in many cases, that is a multiplier effect. But in some cases, it could be a accidental diminisher. How does that
Ooh.
fit for you?
Ooh. Ooh. Yeah, I never thought of it as, yeah, no, wow. Okay, I don't even know how to answer that. As I'm processing it in my head, I'm like, yes, it's definitely a multiplier activity, but I never thought of it as a diminisher activity because it doesn't give people the space to talk things through, right? Um, and listen, I've always been good at giving people the opportunity to talk things through. Um,
Mm,
so what I meant, so let me just go back because I think this is good. And I think a lot of us who are listening to this right now might be wondering, like, what the heck? Um, you know, as I, yes, bring a challenge to the table, but don't just dump it there, right? So if you want
right.
to talk about the challenge, absolutely. So I think if I were thinking from a diminisher multiplier effect, and actually I love the terminology, and I'm going to think about that as I go through my day. I'm going to use it in my conversations. So, are you diminisher or are you multiplier? Being that multiplier is really around, let's work this through, let's talk through this together, let's look at what's available. When I
Mm,
think of it from a diminisher perspective, it's you're dumping it on my lap, you're making it another task for me to do, for me to go solve on my own without the conversation.
yeah,
So if you're open to bringing a challenge or an issue to me, then let's talk about this, right?
let's
So
talk
yeah, I
about
could
it.
totally see how it could be either or, and creating. I think a big part of it, and we talk about this quite a bit, is really creating space for communication. Active listening is a big part of it, right? When people come to us and they bring up things that they want to work through, we really got to be present for them, right? And
Yeah,
what I've
absolutely.
yeah, and what I found in some of the conversations I've been having this week is people aren't really present, or at least they
Mm,
they pretend or they look like they're listening, but they're not really listening, right? And as a multiplier, it's so important to be that listener, to be that
yes.
person who just is there understanding what you're saying. And then if they don't understand, to ask for that clarification. Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit deeper. What does that mean? Let's double click that and see what that means. There's a bunch of different terminologies that in terms that we can use to kind of go even deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah. Wow. I never
100%.
thought of it like that.
Well, John, just as you're having this aha moment, I had a similar one when I did a little mini course around the concept of this book, because I also am an accidental diminisher. But before I tell my story about that, for our listeners out there, remember this is Celebration Friday, and me and John, we'd love to celebrate with you. So if you have something to celebrate, well, let me take that back. You all have something to celebrate.
Yes.
And that is important. And we want to celebrate with you. So put it in the chat. Tell us what showed up for you. Tell us what you learned. Tell us who impacted you. All of that is what we want to celebrate. So we'd love to hear, and put it in the chat, and we'll acknowledge as they come in. So back to the learning that I had for being an accidental diminisher. So one of my values is to be the concept of a multiplier. So it was sort of the same reaction that you just had, kind of shocking and a holy crow moment. Like, I better do some reflection time, because I am an accidental diminisher when I'm too optimistic. So I bring
Mm.
energy that's at a higher level than my surroundings. And sometimes that can be viewed and misunderstood as being disconnected from the problem. So when you always see the glass half full, and people might not understand that you actually do know that there is problems that need to be overcome, or speed bumps that need to be overcome, and that you might be disconnected from the real world. And I was like, whoa, that has never been
Yeah.
my intention, but that is the outcome for some people. And I think what I learned is that when our intentions and our outcomes are mismatched, like from what we want to communicate and what's understood, that's where we become an accidental diminisher. So it's not
Mm,
purposeful, but the awareness elevated immediately for me of when has that happened in my team, in team meetings, in different places where I really thought I had everyone on board. And then, of course, we had to go back to the table because either questions weren't answered or people were naysayers still, or needed a little bit more time to work through the problem themselves. So
yeah.
that was my aha moment. And honestly, John, it was hard to, I had to sit and journal with that of like, oh my goodness, I don't want to be an accidental diminisher. But we all are sometimes when we're not present and aware of our audience
Mm,
and where their starting point is. So this is where
yeah.
curiosity is a skill that you want to use as a leader all the time.
Yeah. No, you touch on something, meet them where they're at. Actually, that's one of the foundations of coaching is, just meet people where they're at. Don't go too far ahead, don't go too far back, just kind of stay present in the moment. And that is so important, right? Like I even think about some of the key lessons from Ted Lasso, right? Like, I've been reading the book that you shared with me, what would Ted Lasso do? And Ted Lasso would just be present, right? Like if you ever watch the show, you'll see his mind's never wandering. He's just there in that moment with those people.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's wow. There was a bit of me that was like, "What do you mean? I'm not a diminisher." Like, I'm like, "There's no way." I'm like, "I'm a super good guy. I'm a super nice guy. I want to get everybody on." But you're right. Sometimes we may be unconscious of how we're excluding people that want to be
Well,
part of
and
it.
there's some
Yeah.
other examples that I can share that, for our
Yeah, I'd love
listeners
to hear
out there,
them.
they might have done it. I think I might have even done a little bit of these, but those the rapid responder, the person
Mm,
that is quicker than you to answer the email or be on top of it. So if you're the boss and you're the rapid responder, you're actually not allowing your team to be the person that says, "Hey, I'm putting my hand up. That's my problem to solve." So that is also an accidental diminisher. And I've had other bosses that they said, "I just wanted to help. I knew the answer. So why wouldn't I give it to you or to the team?" And, how about you just let us
yeah.
figure it out ourselves is the answer. So, and I had someone early in my career that would do that to me. And I actually sat down and said, when you do this, this is how it's impacting me. And it was that moment, that pivotal conversation when they also had that, I didn't mean to be an
Mm.
accidental diminisher, changed our relationship so dramatically that we still stay in contact 25 years later to this day. I just went
Wow.
for a hike with her the other day. And so this is how powerful these conversations are. But another example, John, is trying to be the rescuer. How do oh,
Mm,
let me go do that with my team. They won't know how to do it. And that happens because people want to be helpful. And again, that can be an accidental diminisher activity. So, there's these tiny little micro moments where we might step into accidental diminishers, and it's always by accident in most cases.
yeah. Yeah, listen, and as you're saying that, definitely I'm not the rapid responder. So that much I
No,
do know. I
me
don't
neither.
do that. What do you mean? Me email? It's there? Yes, I'll get to you, but let the team kind of work through it. But yeah, there's little, and I'm sure there's more, right? Like you just shared two of them with us, the and actually, I think I'm guilty of the first one where I want to jump in, I want to help the team, I want to resolve the issue as quickly as possible instead of letting them kind of work through it themselves, especially as the team, right?
Yeah.
Um, I've always prided myself. I worked on IT, right? So part of our role was to be rapid in how we resolved issues,
Yes.
especially the bigger ones. So, let's take industry into consideration when we talk about rapid response, or jumping in and being the fixer, the rapid fixer. But there are things that we can do, right? And I've always been a big believer. Let the team kind of make its own mistakes sometimes, as long as they're not too big, right? Like as long as it's not going to bring down the company or shut down operations for a day. But let them make mistakes because that's where the biggest lessons are. And I think if I were to, kind of think about not the diminisher, but the person on the other side, the multiplier that's helping those people grow, they're helping them understand how to work through issues. and they're
Mhm.
letting them figure it out first, and then you're there to support as needed. So that's so powerful. So
And
powerful.
John, I think you just captured what Nicole just wrote in what she celebrated this week. She had one of those quiet quitters, and all she did was invest in them. And now they have the highest results that they've ever had. So not only am I celebrating that person, but I'm celebrating you, Nicole, because we don't often give ourselves credit for if we look at someone and help them feel seen and heard. Just that gift of our presence and our time and
Mhm.
asking those curious questions, letting someone else solve it for themselves, it has a multiplier effect. So,
Yeah.
Nicole, you are definitely being a multiplier. So, here's the call to action for everyone. I want you to spend some time thinking about this concept of being a multiplier and being a diminisher. And next week, as you go into the week, think about what are some activities that you could do, just one activity a day that's going to be a multiplier activity in your place of work, in your family life, in your in your relationships, and you can start today. So today is the
Mhm.
day that you start being a multiplier, and that could look like being present, asking curious questions, talking to people about the problems that they want to solve in their career. It's kind of getting close to the mid-year time, so mid-year conversations at work are really, really powerful, so that there's no surprises when people get to the end of the year and you and both have a clear picture of what's next. So there's so many ways to be a multiplier. But of course, the other piece is awareness of not being an accidental diminisher. So that is your call to action. John, back to you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Heather. I love that call to action. And I want to start today as soon as we get off this call. For everybody that popped in today and listened to our podcast, or if you're going to be watching or listening to the recording, thank you. Just wanted to thank you for being a part of our community here and listening to the Say Yes Movement podcast. Just remember, when you shift your mindset, you shift your life. Wishing you all a great one. Talk to you all soon. Take care.